Let's investigate the places where science admits it doesn't have all the answers. The mystery spot, Santa Cruz, California. Since 1939, visitors have reported experiencing bizarre phenomena inside a small circular area deep in the redwood forests. Objects appear to hang at impossible angles. People seem to change height depending on where they stand. Balls roll uphill. The sense of balance becomes distorted. The mystery spot has become a famous roadside attraction, but beneath the tourist appeal lies a genuine scientific puzzle. The phenomena occur within a circle approximately 150 feet in diameter. Inside this zone, the normal rules of perception, and perhaps physics itself, seem altered. Skeptics immediately assume it's an optical illusion, clever use of tilted buildings, and forced perspective to create the appearance of impossible physics. And to be fair, part of the attraction does use these tricks. The tilted cabin amplifies the effect and creates dramatic photographs. But here's what makes the mystery spot genuinely interesting. The phenomena existed before any structures were built. The area was known to Native Americans, who avoided it, calling it a forbidden place. When the land was surveyed for development in the 1940s, equipment malfunctioned. Compasses behaved erratically. Trees in the area grow in unusual twisted patterns not seen elsewhere in the forest. Modern investigations have detected actual anomalies. Gravitometers show variations in gravitational force within the circle. Magnetometers detect unusual magnetic field fluctuations. Some researchers propose the area sits above a large deposit of magnetic ore that creates localized field disturbances. This could explain compass deviations and perhaps some of the disorientation people feel. But other phenomena resist explanation. Visitors consistently report feeling taller or shorter depending on position, an effect that persists even when the tilted structures are accounted for. Is this purely psychological, or is something affecting human perception? Researchers have documented that standing in certain positions within the spot produces measurable changes in heart rate and blood pressure. The prevailing scientific explanation is that it's a combination of natural magnetic anomalies, unusual geology creating mild gravitational variations, and psychological effects amplified by expectation and the tilted environment. But this doesn't fully account for why the phenomena are so localized to such a precise area, or why they've been consistent for over 80 years. The mystery spot remains popular precisely because it offers an experience that, even if partially explained, still feels genuinely strange. Something about this location affects human perception in ways we don't fully understand. Magnetic Hill, Moncton, New Brunswick. In southeastern Canada lies a stretch of road where cars appear to roll uphill when placed in neutral. Water poured on the road seems to flow upward. The effect is so convincing that it's become a tourist attraction, with thousands of visitors annually testing the phenomenon. Scientists explain it as an optical illusion. But the illusion is so perfect that it challenges our understanding of how visual perception works. The road in question is on a gentle slope. The surrounding landscape creates a horizon line that's tilted relative to the road's actual grade. This makes a downhill slope appear to be uphill. When you place a car in neutral on what you perceive as a downhill slope, it appears to roll uphill. But it's actually roll in, downhill as physics would predict. The illusion comes from the landscape, not from any actual gravitational anomaly. This explanation is almost certainly correct. Similar gravity hills exist worldwide, and they all share the same characteristics: specific landscape features that distort perception of horizontal and vertical. The human visual system relies heavily on the horizon and surrounding features to determine level. When these cues are manipulated by terrain, our perception of slope can be completely reversed. But here's what makes it fascinating. The illusion is so convincing that even when you know the truth, your brain refuses to accept it. People who understand the optics still feel unease watching their car roll uphill. The phenomenon demonstrates how powerfully environment can override intellectual understanding. Your brain insists something impossible is happening even when you know better. Research into gravity hills has revealed interesting details about human perception. Our sense of vertical isn't determined by a single system. It's a complex integration of visual input, inner ear vestibular information, and proprioceptive feedback from muscles and joints. When these systems receive conflicting information, the brain has to make a choice about what to believe. In the case of gravity hills, vision wins and produces an experience that feels magical even though it's entirely explainable. Magnetic Hill, specifically, has been studied extensively. Surveys confirm it's a standard downhill grade. No actual magnetic or gravitational anomalies exist, yet the perceptual effect is so strong that visitors report feeling disoriented and some experience mild nausea. Physical symptoms from the cognitive dissonance of seeing something that contradicts what their other senses tell them. The real mystery of Magnetic Hill isn't that physics breaks down. It's that human perception is so dependent on environmental context that it can be fooled this completely. It raises questions about how much of reality we actually perceive versus construct. The Oregon Vortex, Gold Hill, Oregon. Before it became a tourist attraction, this location was known as the forbidden ground to Native American tribes who refused to enter it. Horses would refuse to walk into the area. When a mining company built an assay office here in the 1890s, workers reported strange phenomena, and the building eventually slid off its foundation. Today, the site claims to be a spherical field of force, where the laws of physics are supposedly distorted. The Oregon Vortex promotes itself as a place where people and objects appear to change size depending on position, where brooms stand upright on their own, where balls roll uphill, and where visitors feel physical discomfort and disorientation. Skeptics dismiss it as another optical illusion site exploiting forced perspective and tilted buildings. And they're partially right. The tilted structures definitely enhance the effects. But as with the mystery spot, there are documented anomalies that predate the tourist attraction. The original mining structures did slide off their foundations in unusual ways. Trees in the area show growth abnormalities. Compasses and electronic equipment exhibit unusual behavior. Native American traditions about the location suggest the phenomena have been known for centuries. Scientific studies have been inconclusive. No significant gravitational or magnetic anomalies have been consistently detected. The vortex itself may be nothing more than an area where geological features create minor magnetic variations combined with psychological expectation effects. The tilted buildings create powerful optical illusions that the human brain struggles to override. However, some researchers have proposed that the area might sit above geological features that produce subtle environmental effects. Perhaps underground water flows or mineral deposits create localized magnetic fields. These fields might not be strong enough to show up on standard surveys, but could affect sensitive equipment and possibly influence human perception at a subconscious level. The Oregon Vortex represents a category of mystery place where separating genuine phenomenon from showmanship is nearly impossible. Undoubtedly, much of what visitors experience is optical illusion and psychological suggestion. But the historical reports and documented equipment anomalies suggest something unusual about the location itself. Whether that something is a genuine physical anomaly or simply an unusual combination of geological features remains unclear. What's certain is that people who visit report genuine physical sensations, dizziness, nausea, disorientation, that persist even after the optical effects are explained. This suggests that whatever is happening, real or imagined, affects human physiology in measurable ways. Hoia Baciu Forest, Romania. Near the city of Cluj-Napoca lies a forest with a reputation so dark that locals refuse to enter it. Multiple disappearances have been documented. Visitors report intense anxiety, nausea, and the feeling of being watched. Electronic devices malfunction. Photographs and video taken inside the forest show unexplained lights, orbs, and strange geometric shapes. Most mysteriously, there's a circular clearing in the center of the forest where nothing grows, and soil tests show no chemical or biological reason why vegetation should be absent. The forest gained notoriety in the 1960s when military technician Emil Barnea photographed what appears to be a disc-shaped craft hovering over the clearing. Regardless of what that photograph captured, the forest's strange reputation preceded it by centuries. Local folklore describes it as a gateway to another dimension. People who venture inside report missing time, inexplicable injuries, and psychological disturbances that persist after they leave. Scientific investigation has documented several anomalies. Magnetometers detect unusual fluctuations in the magnetic field within the forest. These variations are stronger near the central clearing. Radiation levels are slightly elevated, but not enough to pose health risks. Electronic equipment experiences more failures here than in surrounding areas. Cameras malfunction, cell phones drain rapidly, and GPS devices lose signal. Researchers have also documented the physical effects on visitors. Multiple people report the same cluster of symptoms: anxiety, nausea, skin irritation, and the sensation of being watched. Some visitors develop unexplained rashes and burns. One researcher documented experiencing severe scratches that appeared on his arms while walking through the forest, despite no contact with thorns or sharp objects. The sterile clearing is perhaps the forest's greatest mystery. It's a nearly perfect circle where soil is present, moisture levels are adequate, and yet nothing grows. Analysis of the soil shows no obvious contamination or chemical that would prevent plant growth. Seeds planted in the clearing fail to germinate. The boundary between the clearing and the surrounding forest is sharp. Vegetation grows right up to an invisible line and then stops. Theories attempting to explain Hoia Baciu range from the scientific to the paranormal. The most grounded explanation suggests unusual geology, perhaps underground deposits, creating magnetic anomalies and low-level electromagnetic effects that affect human neurology. This could explain the anxiety, nausea, and equipment failures. The clearing might have different soil composition at a level current tests haven't detected. More exotic theories invoke everything from naturally occurring infrasound causing fear responses, to quantum physics phenomena, to portals between dimensions. The forest has become a hotspot for paranormal investigators, which has complicated serious research as genuine investigation gets mixed with ghost hunting and UFO tourism. What's undeniable is that Hoia Baciu Forest affects visitors in consistent, documented ways. Whether the cause is unusual geology, electromagnetic phenomena, psychological suggestion amplified by reputation, or something science hasn't identified, people who enter this forest experience something measurably different from a normal woodland walk. Devil's Kettle, Minnesota. In Judge C.R. Magny State Park, the Brule River splits around a rock formation. One stream continues downstream normally, the other plunges into a massive pothole called Devil's Kettle and vanishes. For decades, no one knew where that water went. Researchers poured dye into the kettle. It never emerged. They dropped ping-pong balls, logs, and GPS-tracked devices. Nothing was ever recovered. Thousands of gallons of water per minute disappear into the earth with no apparent outlet. The mystery of Devil's Kettle baffled geologists and hydrologists for years. The obvious assumption was that the water flows through an underground river system and emerges somewhere downstream. But repeated searches found no outlet. The volume of water disappearing into the kettle should produce a significant output somewhere, but none was found. Dye tracing should have revealed the water's path, but the dye vanished without appearing anywhere downstream or in groundwater. Theories proliferated. Perhaps the water flowed into a vast underground lake. Maybe it filtered through porous rock and emerged diffused over a wide area. Some proposed the water was being absorbed into the Earth's mantle through geological processes. A few suggested more exotic possibilities, like caverns leading to underground seas. In 2017, researchers from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources conducted a comprehensive study using advanced flow measurement techniques. They measured the water volume going into Devil's Kettle and compared it to the total flow downstream after the split. The measurements showed that the flow downstream accounted for all the water from both streams. The conclusion: the water from Devil's Kettle does emerge back into the main river channel. It just does so underground through a lava tube or fracture in the bedrock that reconnects below the waterfall. This explanation is probably correct, but it raises interesting questions. Why did decades of dye tracing fail to detect the connection? The researchers suggested that the underground passage might be complex enough that dye gets diluted beyond detection by the time it emerges. But this seems unusual given the volume of water involved. Why have no objects thrown into the kettle ever been recovered? The researchers propose that the underground passage has chambers or constrictions where objects get trapped while water flows through. This is plausible, but it means there's a considerable underground void filled with all the debris that's been thrown in over the years. Logs, ping pong balls, scientific instruments. That's a significant hidden volume. Devil's Kettle demonstrates how difficult it can be to solve mysteries even when they seem straightforward. For decades, scientists assumed they'd easily trace where the water went. The fact that it took until 2017 to solve it, and that the solution remains somewhat unsatisfying because it doesn't explain all the observations, shows that nature can hide secrets in surprisingly effective ways. The sailing stones of Death Valley. In a flat, dry lakebed called Racetrack Playa, stones weighing up to 700 pounds move across the desert floor, leaving long trails behind them. No one ever saw the stones move. The trails appeared mysteriously, sometimes stretching hundreds of feet. The stones moved in different directions, sometimes making sharp turns. For over a century, the sailing stones were one of geology's most persistent mysteries. Theories attempting to explain the stones ranged from magnetic fields to aliens to elaborate hoaxes. The most scientific proposals involved wind, ice, or some combination of environmental factors. But the stones were too heavy for wind alone to move, and ice wasn't consistently present. Some trails showed the stones made sharp 90-degree turns, difficult to explain with wind. Other trails ran parallel just feet apart, suggesting the stones moved simultaneously under identical conditions. Researchers studied the phenomenon for decades. They mapped trails, tracked individual stones, and monitored environmental conditions. But the stones only moved occasionally, perhaps once every few years, and always when no one was watching. It was as if the stones knew they were being observed and refused to reveal their secret. The mystery was finally solved in 2014 when researchers managed to capture the stones moving on camera for the first time. The explanation involves a rare combination of specific conditions. In winter, rain floods the playa to a depth of a few inches. On cold nights, this water freezes into a thin sheet of ice. As morning arrives and the ice begins to melt, it breaks into large floating panels. Light winds push these ice panels, which push against stones frozen into the ice. The moving ice provides enough force to slide even heavy stones across the muddy lakebed. This explanation is elegant and fits all the observations. It explains why stones move in different directions. Ice panels are pushed by varying winds. It explains the parallel trails. Multiple stones caught in the same ice panel move together. It explains why movement is rare. The conditions must be precisely right for ice to form, and then partially melt while wind is present. But here's what makes the sailing stones fascinating even after being explained. The phenomenon is so rare and requires such specific conditions that researchers studied it for a century before witnessing it. The stones were performing a completely natural process, following known physics, yet it remained mysterious because the conditions necessary for movement are extraordinarily uncommon. Death Valley can go years without experiencing the exact combination of rainfall, temperature, and wind needed to sail the stones. The sailing stones remind us that sometimes mystery just means rare enough that we haven't observed it happening. The stones weren't breaking physics. They were demonstrating physics under unusual circumstances. Yet for a century, very smart people couldn't figure it out. This humbles us about how much we might be missing in other phenomena simply because we haven't been lucky enough to observe them occurring. The Hessdalen Lights, Norway. In a small valley in central Norway, mysterious lights have appeared in the sky regularly since at least the 1930s. The lights vary in color, intensity, duration, and behavior. Some hover motionless. Others dart around erratically. They appear at different altitudes, from just above the ground to high in the atmosphere. They've been photographed, filmed, measured with scientific instruments, and tracked on radar. After 40 years of study, scientists still don't have a definitive explanation. The Hessdalen lights gained serious scientific attention in the 1980s when sightings increased dramatically. Residents reported seeing lights almost weekly. In 1984, researchers established Project Hessdalen to study the phenomenon systematically. They installed automated cameras, radar systems, magnetometers, and spectrum analyzers. They documented that the lights are real, physical phenomena, not misidentifications of conventional objects or hoaxes. The lights exhibit several distinct types of behavior. Some appear as bright white or yellow orbs that hover or move slowly. Others are rapid-moving red or blue lights. Some lights pulse or flicker. Duration varies from seconds to over an hour. The lights appear most frequently in winter and during certain weather conditions, but no pattern fully predicts when they'll appear. Scientists have proposed multiple theories. One suggests the lights are formed by combustion of hydrogen and other gases escaping from the valley floor, essentially natural burning of geological gases. Another proposes they're related to seismic activity, perhaps electrical phenomena generated by stress in the Earth's crust. A third theory involves unusual plasma formations created by atmospheric conditions, interacting with the valley's specific geography and geology. The most developed explanation involves a dusty plasma theory. This proposes that the valley's geology creates conditions where airborne dust particles become ionized, forming glowing plasma. The specific minerals in the valley's rocks, combined with moisture and electromagnetic effects, could create these ionized clouds. The theory explains many observations but struggles with others, particularly the light's apparent ability to move against the wind and their extraordinarily long duration. Radar tracking has confirmed the lights are physical objects or phenomena with radar signatures. They're not optical illusions or misidentified conventional aircraft. Spectrum analysis has shown unusual light signatures that don't match common light sources. Some measurements have detected electromagnetic effects associated with the lights. What makes Hessdalen genuinely mysterious is that after 4 decades of scientific study with sophisticated equipment, we still can't definitively say what creates these lights. The valley exhibits documented geological and electromagnetic anomalies. The lights are real and measurable, but the precise mechanism remains unclear. This is a modern mystery being studied with modern tools, and it still resists complete explanation. The Taos hum. In and around the town of Taos, New Mexico, approximately 2% of the population reports hearing a persistent, low-frequency hum. Descriptions are consistent. A rumbling or droning sound similar to a distant diesel engine idling. It's loud enough to disturb sleep and cause significant distress. Some hearers report physical symptoms, including headaches, dizziness, and nausea. But here's the mystery. No source for the sound has ever been identified, and most people can't hear it at all. The Taos hum was first widely reported in the early 1990s when numerous residents complained to authorities about the noise. Investigations found no industrial source, no underground facilities, no machinery that could produce the sound. Acoustic engineers brought in sensitive equipment to detect and locate the hum. The equipment detected nothing unusual, yet the hearers insisted the sound was present and maddening. Similar hums have been reported in other locations worldwide: Bristol in England, Bondi in Australia, Windsor in Ontario. The phenomenon is consistent enough that it's been studied seriously by acoustics researchers, environmental scientists, and medical professionals. The hearers aren't making it up, they genuinely perceive a sound. But if the sound exists, why can't it be measured? And why can only some people hear it? Several theories have been proposed. One suggests the hum is produced by very low-frequency sounds, below the threshold of normal hearing but detectable by some people. These sounds could be generated by natural sources like ocean waves, atmospheric pressure variations, or seismic activity. Some individuals might have unusual sensitivity to these low frequencies. Another theory proposes the hum is related to electromagnetic phenomena. High-voltage power lines, radio transmitters, and electronic equipment produce electromagnetic fields. Some researchers suggest certain people have sensitivity to these fields that manifests as an auditory perception. The electromagnetic energy somehow stimulates the auditory system directly. A more controversial explanation suggests the hum is tinnitus, a ringing or buzzing in the ears generated internally rather than from an external source. But this doesn't explain why hums are geographically localized or why they often affect multiple people in the same area. Recent research has focused on the characteristics of people who hear hums versus those who don't. Studies show hearers often have unusually acute hearing in certain frequency ranges. Some have minor abnormalities in their auditory systems that might make them sensitive to sounds others can't detect. This supports the idea that the hum is a real external sound, just one that requires specific physiological characteristics to perceive. The Taos hum remains frustrating because it sits at the intersection of subjective experience and objective measurement. The hearers have consistent, detailed experiences, but science struggles to measure or locate what they're experiencing. This creates a strange situation where we can't say definitively whether the phenomenon is acoustic, electromagnetic, physiological, or some combination even after decades of study. The Bermuda Triangle. No list of mysterious places would be complete without mentioning the region of the Atlantic Ocean bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Ships and aircraft have disappeared here under mysterious circumstances. The region has developed a reputation for supernatural danger. But does the Bermuda Triangle actually represent a genuine anomaly, or is it a case of selective reporting and sensationalism? The legend of the Bermuda Triangle was largely created by writer Vincent Gaddis in a 1964 article and popularized by Charles Berlitz in his 1974 book. They compiled incidents of missing ships and aircraft, highlighted unusual circumstances, and suggested something paranormal was occurring. The list included Flight 19, the USS Cyclops, and numerous other disappearances. When researchers examined the claims systematically, a different picture emerged. The Triangle is one of the most heavily traveled shipping lanes in the world. Statistically, the number of incidents is not unusual for the volume of traffic. Many disappearances occurred during known storms or under circumstances easily explained by weather and human error. Some mysterious disappearances were actually solved, wreckage was found, causes determined, but these facts were ignored to maintain the mystery. However, some legitimate, unusual features of the region deserve mention. The Triangle sits in an area of the Atlantic where several factors create challenging conditions. The Gulf Stream flows through the region, creating rapid and sometimes violent weather changes. The area is prone to sudden severe storms. The seafloor has areas of significant depth where wreckage could be difficult to locate. More intriguing are reports of compass variations in the region. The Bermuda Triangle is one of few places on Earth where magnetic north and true north align, which can create navigation confusion if pilots or sailors aren't aware of this. Additionally, some researchers have proposed that methane gas hydrates on the seafloor could occasionally release large bubbles of gas. If a ship were directly above a massive release, the water's density would drop suddenly, potentially causing the vessel to sink rapidly. This theory is speculative, but not physically impossible. The scientific consensus is that the Bermuda Triangle is not genuinely anomalous. The disappearances that have occurred there are consistent with the expected rate given the traffic volume and the region's weather conditions. The mystery is primarily a creation of selective reporting, emphasizing incidents that seem strange while ignoring the thousands of ships and aircraft that pass through without incident. But the Bermuda Triangle legend persists because it taps into something psychologically compelling. The ocean is vast and dangerous. Things do go wrong. Ships and aircraft have vanished completely, leaving no trace. Even if the explanations are mundane, storms, mechanical failure, human error, the fact remains that sometimes people vanish at sea, and we never learn exactly what happened. The triangle legend takes this universal maritime danger and focuses it into a specific geographic area, making the fear concrete and localized. 10 mysterious places. Some explained, some partially understood, some still completely baffling. What these locations demonstrate is that the world contains phenomena that challenge our understanding. Not everything that seems mysterious violates physics. Sometimes physics is just more complex and subtle than we initially realize. The mystery spot and magnetic hill remind us how powerfully our perception can be manipulated by environmental cues. The Oregon Vortex and Hoia Baciu forest show how difficult it is to separate genuine anomaly from psychological effect. Devil's Kettle demonstrates that nature can hide simple mechanisms in ways that baffle us for decades. The sailing stones prove that rare natural processes can appear impossible until we're lucky enough to observe them. The Hessdalen lights show that even with modern technology, some phenomena resist complete explanation. The Taos hum illustrates how challenging it is to study effects that only some people can perceive. And the Bermuda Triangle warns us about how easily mystery can be created through selective reporting and pattern seeking. These places exist. You can visit them. Some of the phenomena can be explained. Others remain genuinely mysterious. What they all share is the reminder that the world is stranger and more complex than everyday experience suggests. Science doesn't have all the answers yet, and perhaps more importantly, even the answers science does have are often more fascinating than the mysteries themselves.